Hello friends, today we are going to start a new series in the unit 3 of building performance measurement analysis that is called the post-occupancy evaluation. As you know that the very name suggests that once the building is occupied, then we make evaluations to do value additions to the project. So this is known as post-occupancy evaluations. Once the building is occupied, the users are put in place, and they spend quite some time, say at least 3 months or 6 months, and then they get to know what are the problems in the building. Are there any construction related issues? Are there any design related issues? Or there is some confusions or regarding signage, for instance, or maybe you know what, that if there's a new shopping mall and it's simply not working up, showing up the results in the terms of the footfall. So the facility managers and owners might sit up and think with the architects, designers, at how to improve the footfall, maybe how to enhance the entrance, how to have the more aesthetic viewpoint in the building, or maybe simply for the energy managers, how to reduce energy consumption, or you look at the water consumption in the building, you look at other sustainability measures, or maybe just you want to cut down the energy bills. So there are many purposes to do post-occupancy evaluation. So it is a very important tool for benchmarking the building's performance. Hence, it is there in our one of the units. So usually this profession is now almost 40 years old. And if you see that it's very rare that we get feedback from the people who are actually users of the project, and then we use that feedback in the upcoming projects so as to improvise upon the design. So here we go. So today the main topic is we're going to discuss about is what is POE and what is its role, and how that what are the different frameworks and what are the benefits of POE, and some of the examples I will undertake to illustrate the whole concept of the post-occupancy evaluation. Okay, so this is, wait a minute. Just one second. So here it is. So this is one of the abstract from the paper which I've written on the post-occupancy evaluation way back in 2012 in an action conference. So we'll take experts from there on. And so these are the contents of the presentation. What is post-occupancy evaluation? What is the rule and how do you define POE? How do you develop a framework for conducting a POE? What are timelines? And how energy conservation and POE are correlated. And then with the help of a few examples and energy audits, we get down to the conclusions. Okay, so what is POE? So as I've illustrated to you, explained to you already that once the building is commissioned, handed over and in use, then we conduct the evaluation of the building to understand its performance, to understand the way the building was designed, how it is performing. So you see what happens, usually buildings do not perform the way we think them to be. You can take a simple residential house. People might have made some changes in the project as per their requirements or the user's lifestyle or your requirements or their aspirations. So, everybody tries to kind of, individualize the spaces. So how? And then you must have seen that there are a lot of encroachments, violations in the project so as to meet users' requirements. This might change the way the building was designed. So the second is that the POE acts as a feedback. It's a feedback loop. Even for a smallest product, companies conduct the feedbacks from the customers regarding their satisfaction or finding out the ways how to improve their buildings and how. So similarly, the feedback from this, once, say, for example, we designed a school and say we've designed 50 schools. And if we got a feedback from the 49th school that we designed, how am I building performing? Where were the issues in architecture, design? Where were the issues in construction team? What drawings were to be given? What was lacking in the entire process? Or even how can we accommodate the new requirements of the users? Or maybe the users or stakeholders, you can say, maybe they could range from the principal, staff, students, cleaners, or drivers, or something, they could be like this. So this POE can provide us very useful information to help manage the buildings and And the most important of this is that it will provide as a feedback or feed forward for the next project and to bring changes in the project as per dynamic requirements of the users. Or for instance, I have told you that how to increase the footfall in a project. So the role of post-occupancy evaluation ranges from understanding how buildings are performing, understanding how users' needs are changing over the time, and the managing responses to organizational change and increase productivity. For example, if there's an office space, how do we increase the productivity of my employees by taking care of their health and well-being, maybe by providing better daylight or diffused daylight, reducing glare, or maybe there may be so many factors. So maybe localized discomfort due to air conditioning, or maybe due to by curtailing the sound due to sound from nearby areas, or the background noise, or it could be just the ambience of the space by improving the greenscape of the project by having indoor plants, or the other could be like, when the project is implemented, it takes a year and a half or even more for project delivery. And there are many issues between architect, construction team, and coordinators and PMC consultants and the owners, which go into making a design. So there are a lot of changes during the design. So to understand, to improve the process of project delivery by architecture, engineering, and construction term. So, this is the project life cycle. The standardized. The first is the conceive, how the architects conceive the project in their studios, and then they have to procure, they have to deliver the project, detailed drawings, DNITs, tenders, and finally the project is implemented by the contractor, and then it is used by the occupiers, and finally it's managed by the facility managers. So this is the typical life cycle of the project. So POE can start from how the buildings are being designed in the studio to how they are being delivered to the client, and then thirdly to the selection of contractor, and fourth, what are the issues on the site during construction, and finally fifth is how the facility managers are facing problems in implementing the upkeep of the project, or maybe the changing lifestyle of the users or the management. So the focus of the project POE can be seen as more of the it's not just the review of the building. It is more than that. It is a systematic science. So it includes the process. How does the AEC, that is architecture, engineering, and construction team perform? Then how the building is supporting the way it was designed, the user's aspirations and business requirements, and how well does the fabric, the building envelope achieve the technical specifications which were thought of the project. So for example, if you design an air conditioning system and it is not having sufficient cooling, or it is overcooling these occupants, then it's not performing to the level it has been designed. So the functional performance could be, now it can have a wide range. It could encompass from regarding the architectural image and the emotional quotient. How do people connect to the project? What are different space sizes, the corridors, the relationship between different spaces, connectivity between different floors, and how it is being adapted to the new uses, which everything cannot be foreseen by an architect. And in terms of comfort, lighting, temperature, ventilation, noise, user controls, access controls, security, and the serviceability, how the building design helps in better privacy, or the cleaning, or the maintenance, and the operational management. How efficient is the operational management? So we have the parameters are like the environmental parameters, that is energy consumption, water consumption, even the you can say the CO2 sensors can meet the indoor air quality in the project. They can gauge this, and how the building is adaptable to accommodate changes. So the aims and objectives of the POE are linked to the project brief, that is feed forward to the next project, that it acts as a positive feedback for the people who design the project next, and then it could be useful for the facility management, and it would bring change in existing buildings as per user requirements to enhance the productivity. So it is a holistic science to understand how the POE should carry out. So this is example of the project which I just want to discuss, and it is a study from internet. And see, here the focus is on special spaces. The project is Wharton Center for Addition and Remodeling of the Wharton Center. And the best feature is that this is a state-of-the-art facility, and it needs the first-class renovation. So how the new spaces were received by the people, and now what happens is that the lounges were too sterile. You can see it is sparse with little furniture and uninviting and not fully private, and the difficult to access from elevator. So these were the issues were reported by the people in the user service. So, and the workstations were too hot and too cold for some people, and the ticketing operations and flow of audience in obtaining tickets, there was some difficulty found in managing the ticketing, and the access to the toilets, like wayfinding, was not easy for the people. Even the clock room is difficult to locate for the audience, so there was no directional signage. So how now this whole thing led to the, once you know the problem, then you can find a solution. So from the user satisfaction surveys of occupants, they found that, okay, the pattern lounges can be made more livable and lively places and more accessible by adding the soft and comfortable seating areas, by softening the light, by subdividing areas for more, making groups in seatings and have a softer feeling spaces like hotels. And then it was a very sterile space. Then use green rooms for the VIP lounge areas to improve accessibility and reduce walking time to the current lounges. So this is how, this is one little example how POE can be helpful in improving the productivity of the place or in enhancing aesthetics. So our next we move on to how the energy conservation and POE correlated. So as you know that in POE we measure the performance of the building once it is in use. So we have the real values from the end use of the project, and since the buildings, they are big end users of the energy, so they account for 20 to 40% of energy demands, and the rates of new building construction in developing nations accelerating. So any building, it becomes eventually old once it is occupied. So it is no longer a new building. So it could be certified green building, it could be just not a certified green building. So one can measure, audit the performance of the building with respect to energy consumption. And so at the same time, it's not only energy consumption, but the primary purpose of energy is to maintain the visual comfort, the thermal comfort, and the cooling comfort. So if the people are satisfied with the indoor environment in terms of the temperature, humidity, and the localized discomfort, then we would find out where are the issues in a building. So no building can be designed perfectly. It doesn't work as the way we think a building in a theory. So, so it is often seen that buildings where energy efficient concepts have been used and users of the building are not aware of the concept. So this is again about the sensitivity of the users or user awareness. For example, in our university, we have a library building in which we had used the earth air tunneling as a concept for passive cooling. But the concept has awfully failed because the users are not happy. We are not able to have that air throw or the sufficient cool airs in the months of summer to cool the building or to give comfort to the people. And so, sometimes the buildings do not perform the way they're designed. Another example is like, it's a very common example. The rainwater harvesting system has been mandatory, made by Huda, as per Haryana Building Code, in all plots of 100 square meter and above. But now what is seen is practically all rainwater harvesting schemes are non-functional, either deliberately by end users or due to lack of awareness of the concepts. And but sometimes this rainwater harvesting tank just serves as the purpose of bypassing sewer line. So the whole purpose of RDB is defeated. So the problem is that you design a very good system, and due to lack of awareness of the people, the the things may not be in use. You have designed a project with sufficient daylight and presuming that no artificial light will be used. But you can see in our own department that sometimes people, there are certain faculty even who are fully aware of energy conscious projects and the green building valuators, but they shut down their windows in daytime and they cover the windows with blinds and they switch on the artificial lights. So this is a very common, maybe the personal choice or psychological issue or the user's lack of sensitivity in making the building behave the way it is designed. And you know what, if the project is to change after it is handed over to the clients, after it is commissioned, and the cost becomes phenomenal to bring changes. It's very easy to start. It's very easy to bring changes right in the planning stage. And as the stage goes higher from planning to design to when it's building under construction, then finally to occupancy, the cost to change becomes higher and you can do very limited change. There's very little value improvement in potential of the project. So, So which we discussed that people keep the equipments on, lights on when even they are not using the space. So the idea of using in the building automatic systems, or maybe the idea of using the sensors and daylight sensors is very useful because we cannot trust people. So ECBCs come out with lighting control systems and day control systems in their buildings so as to make them mandatory uh, and not leaving the energy consumption to the users alone. And so what happens is that by technology, by using sensors, by increasing improvement of awareness, by improving design. For instance, when I designed a project in Sonipat, so it is a large complex project and having multiple number of spaces, the list of requirements run in several pages. So it may not be really possible to, envisage every space. But when we carried out the design simulations of daylight, we found that we were doing something wrong. So we immediately changed the design. But you see, that is the importance of building simulation. So once you make, in the next project, I will be definitely conscious and aware. But the whole point is, if this project is well documented, what are the problems which come into the project, and now this becomes study for the next line of architects. Or if I were to design an office building, if I get a documented feedback of the office buildings design so far and what are the issues people faced, so I can definitely design a better building next time. I tell you another problem. There's another failure. It's not a failure, it's a limitation. For example, I designed the building to having a floor to floor height of 3.9 meters, thinking that 1 meter space is sufficient for accommodating structural and services. But we just wanted to maintain 2.90 is the height of the floor below the false ceiling so that the space gets adequate daylight and the penetration is deeper. But actually speaking, when the whole process worked out with the services, with the clients and final working of things, we were not able to deliver 2.90. So in the next project, I will keep it definitely 4.1 or 4 meters minimum to get away with the problem. But if I get this problem as a feedback in a documented form from other users or in POE studies of the offices or some other user manuals, then I think I will not have done the same mistake. So, one can design better if somebody has, documented such things. Similarly, like, a lot of technologies are there. They're not popular. Uh, they're not even used by the designers. I don't understand why, but the problem is that people don't want to experiment. So if you have the feedback from the projects which have used them, that gives a sense of confidence to the designers, and one can simply bring more sustainable technologies into the design. So POE of such buildings as inventory, it serves as inventory to use by designers for the next project on the board. So one can bridge the gap between application of such highly efficient products in terms of energy consumption as well as energy conservation and acceptability factors by studying psychological and technical implications of those things. So, and there are many, technologies, for example, waste to energy converter, the recycling concept, the making manure in the garden. We are all aware of those technologies, but still we do not, integrate those things in our designs right in the beginning. So it is, if these studies are available to us in a document form, to not to anybody who designs a project or constructs projects or even owns an office building as an owner, as a stakeholder, I think you have better confidence in implementing those studies, and whatever issues you found in those uh, uh, ice breaking technologies, you can kind of find solutions to them, and those solutions can serve as a repertory or inventory for others to look upon. So look at this. So this is one of the studies of Fortis Shalimar Bagh, where they have kind of done optimizations after the building was commissioned. So they brought down from 605 kilowatt hour per square meter per annum to 312 per square meter per annum. So this is like post-building envelope optimization, artificial lighting optimization, installing efficient chillers. So the retrofittings also form important part of this. In the World Trade Center in US, in New York, they have done the retrofitted the entire amount of windows just next to the facade and are saving tons of energy. So all these things, they are essentially outcomes of the post-occupancy evaluations. And the sometimes the assumptions we make during when we design a project, like the occupancy, the actual occupancy hours can be very different from those designed. The final as built building can differ remarkably from the initial design. The users might have different requirements or the lifestyles or aspirations in the project look for. There could be cultural diversity in the users who may not agree with the way architects and designers design. The plug loads of electrical, air conditioning, and lighting may often very differently than the assumed loads, and building may not be commissioned properly. Its actual usage may not be the same the way it was designed for. So there could be several parameters which can lead you to kind of uh, having change scenario from the one design scenario. And in such cases, the post-occupancy evaluations will definitely help you in gauging the performance of building and bringing the building back to its benchmark performance, which we originally supposed to be designed. And many green buildings do not perform the way they were designed. In fact, sometimes the buildings are known as sick building syndromes because indoor air quality, lighting, the ventilation is not as good as they've been designed. So the post-occupancy evaluation in all these respects can serve as a very useful tool for looking at the buildings, the way they behave, the way they perform, and how to bring changes in them, plus as well as the feedback for the next project. Thank you so much. Any questions, you can post me on the Zoom app.